Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Those of you who are joining me today for this live, I welcome you all. And everybody who's going to be watching the replay, the recording of this live, welcome to my channel. I am so happy that you're here for this video or live. So today I am going to be playing with the Sixxiz collection, a collaboration with Vicki, and I am just going to be creating a fun, colorful art journal page. So I am going to quickly switch my view so that I can shift to my desk and start creating. So that's my first journal page, and I am going to be using this as inspiration for today's video, just changing up the colors a bit, but essentially playing with layers, showing you all how it works when I am using the stamps, the stencils, and all the elements from Sixxiz. Right, so that's just my inspiration. Also today I will be creating on a loose sheet of watercolor paper instead of in my book, just to change things up a little bit. And I always love also creating journal pages on loose sheets, because then I can put it back in another album or just kind of tuck it into my loose journals. So with that said, first up I am going to show you um, what products I will be using today. So let me just pull those out. And also, before I forget, there is a special discount if you want to shop for this collection over on Sixxiz, both the UK and US websites. So if that's something that you want to do, um, you can use the discount code in the description box below and get a discount when purchasing the Sixxiz Vicki Boutin collection. So these are two sets of stencils. Now there are four stencils each in the set, and I am going to be mixing everything up really for my layers today. So those are the stencils. And as far as the main products go in terms of my focal elements, let me quickly show you what I will be using. So I have these thinlet dies, and this is the one that I will be using. So I've already die cut that on black cardstock, and I'm going to set that aside. And then there are these framelets and stamp sets. So one has a lot of foliage elements with the butterflies, and the other has florals, a whole lot of florals. And I can tell you these flowers, you can use them as the frame itself. You can use them with the thinlits like I will be doing today. You can embroider, you can just whole lot of techniques that you can do with it, right? So I can just quickly show you. So this is how it comes. This is the stamp, and then the dies, which die cut the outline, like leaving a nice border around, as well as the inner portion of the flower and the other elements. So this is what I will be using today, and I think we can just get right into it. So I am going to remove the stencils that I need for my layers. So I want the leaves, and today I'm thinking I'll use this pattern and the flowers from here. I love that these come in these storage sleeves, so it's really easy to just label and store them. The packaging itself is really amazing. That's the thing. So that goes in there, and from this I am going to pull out this pattern and set the rest aside. So I am going to be building a whole lot of layers with stencils first before I actually get into the dies and everything. Now I am going to pull out my stamp and stencil platform from Sixxiz, and because I'm going to be stenciling, I'm just going to get rid of the top, set that aside, remove the sheet, and I can then just place my green tool, which is helpful to hold the stencils down in place, right there, clip it in, and that's it. The stencil just goes right into these grooves, and I can then start creating with it. So I am going to just place my paper right here, and this is hot pressed watercolor paper. So it's relatively smoother than a textured paper, and I have sized it down to 4.5 by 6 inches because I have a journal that uses the size of the pages. So I will be using multiple mediums today for this particular page, and I'm just going to keep it sideways so that it's visible and everybody can clearly see what I am doing. Right now, I am going to start with some inks. I will add pink in the background, so I'm just using my alt new inks. This is Rubelite, and because I use these a lot, I will be using my brushes that I have for these colors and not the foam blending brushes. So that's Rubelite, and very randomly I just start ink blending through this particular stencil. I will not cover the entire region, just a little bit randomly here and there. Add a little interest and break that blank page. That's basically what I am doing, just breaking my blank page and adding a tone of pink on the background. I am using watercolor paper because I am going to be adding so many layers and I'm going to be playing with Lindy's. So for that reason, it just makes sense for me to either use mixed media paper or watercolor paper. So that's a light shade of the pink down there, and let's lift the stencil and see. I think that really looks fabulous. I can set this stencil aside and move on to my next stencil. So let's see, let's bring the floral cluster in now. I am going to just lay that down in place, and once that is down in place, now I will bring in some more colors. So I'm going to use orange next. So that's Tangerine Dream that I will be using. And again, not the entire region of the stencil, just parts where I get, you see right here, florals just peeking through. That's the idea. That's the intention with this. So we are just laying out inks through the stencils, adding layers, and not everything needs to be visible. Just a few portions will peek through, and that's the idea of mixed media layers. We don't necessarily have to see each layer in its entire manner, but just parts peeking through. So this stencil has a nice script element too that I really like, and I'm just going to blend it out there. And with the stencil down in place over the orange, I'm just going to add a little bit of a purple. So just blending in and adding a little bit of the purple right there. at a few places. So then I have blends, and then I can just gently lift off the stencil, and you see it's already starting to take shape. I will set that aside, and I will use this. I'll get my paper off the stamp platform. I don't need to use this now because I'm going to get into some messy layers. So I'm just going to work on my mat right here. Place this leaf stencil, and what I'm going to do is use my green ink and just rub it over on the stencil. I'll just do that. So I mean, I can just set this aside and do that. It doesn't really matter. And I will then spritz it with water to activate it, flip it around, and get the negative print of the stencil. What that does is it just gives me this green imprint, and it's organic. It's not in a particular direction, and that's the best part about it. We want random layers, random textures, and random layers. That's exactly what we're looking for. So I am just going to wipe this with a baby wipe. And it's not too wet, honestly, because, it's just a little bit that I've used. And then I can just lay it back there, bring out my blending brush, and add a little more over this through the stencil at a few places. So that way, again, I have started building layers, and I'm mostly focusing on the edges. We have nice layers right there in the center. You just want a little on the edges right here. So it's not going to be too much. It's just something very subtle. And once that's done, I can set this aside and move on to my next layer. So I am going to set this piece aside and color my main elements. So just going to push this on the side now. For the main elements, I have already stamped some flowers and foliage elements and butterflies on the same hot press paper with embossing ink, and heat set that with white embossing powder. So it is not too visible. You can just see a glare there, a glossy look, but it's not too visible. However, you will slowly start seeing it once I start coloring it up. So I am using the Go Girl flats today without any shimmer to color my elements. I'm just going to pull all of those out, and there are two ways to doing this. I can either mist it with water and sprinkle the color. So I'm going to add some bold color, so I can just sprinkle it through the shaker, mist with a little more water, and use my paintbrush. This is again from Lindy's, and just dab the color out. Right? So that is one way of doing it, and it gives me this nice intense look. But the only thing is it then splatters all around, and I want different colors. So what I can then also do is just open up the complete lid of my shaker, and be careful, it will sprinkle. My glue always just sprinkles everywhere, so I need to be a little careful. I'll just dab that and quickly clean my mat. So it's mixed media, messy layers. That's exactly what we are playing with. And instead of actually wasting all this powder that fell on my craft mat, I will just pick that and use that up. So what I'm going to do is I am going to wet the flour right there, pick pigment from my mat and dab that. So I'm going to get a nice mix and just another bold, intense coloring. So I'm just going outside of the outline so you can see now the outline becomes visible with that whole embossing. I'm just going to use a paper napkin to clean it off. And so I have a bright pink, I have a blue. I can actually right here on the blue sprinkle a little pink on the side and make a purple. So you can mix Lindy's and get another color. And I will just moisten this and pick the purple and drop that. So that way I have different shades of the blue, and I have just a little orange in the background. That was the idea of using the orange there, because I wanted to keep these colors as a highlight on the foreground. So now this is purple. I want to add maybe a touch of yellow. So what I'm going to do is, again, right here on my craft mat itself, I am not too worried. I'll just sprinkle some yellow and just mix it with water. Pick that and then just use that to color the small floral. I think this laid on top of the purple will look really amazing. And then over this blue, I need something else. So I'm going to just go back in, splatter a little bit of this magenta, just sprinkle that and use my wet paintbrush to move it around. That looks good. And again, moisten this just a little bit. What I'm going to do is sprinkle this, move it around, and with my paper napkin dab it off, and then go in with the yellow so I get a little bit of this orangish coral color too. So I am mixing the colors right here on my petals. That's another way to do it. So with this, you see how fast it is. I can color within seconds and not be too worried. Now for the leaves, I want to mix up the blue and the green to get a different shade. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little green right here, set it aside, and get the blue and just pick a little more, mix it right here and see what color that gives me. And I think I get a nice bold emerald green. So that's good to color the leaves, and I'm adding more intensity at the base of the leaves and using more water as I move to the tips. Now I have these other foliage elements, so I am just going to wet them, pick up the green and just drop it and mix a little bit of that blue green at a few places. So it's simple, easy coloring when you have stamped the image and heat set it with embossing powder, white embossing powder in this case. It's just easy to add color because anyway, I am going to be die cutting all of these elements. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit and that is done. And the butterflies, I am going to just wet them. There is yellow on there. I am going to pick a little blue, dab it, and then pick a little bit of the purple that I created just at the edges. So it creates this two-toned effect. So I'm going to clean my brush, just moisten this, get a little bit of this pink, dab it, pick the blue and just on my page creating a variation right there. That's about it. So I am quickly going to clean up all this mess that I have created here. Set the colors aside. And by then this will quickly dry out. So over here it's really hot and it doesn't take too long for this to naturally dry. I don't have to really use my heat tool. But again, it depends on where you are and what kind of a weather you have. You can then use a heat tool, but if you have time with Lindy's, it's just nice to let it dry naturally. I think it just gives a beautiful effect when you let it do its own thing. I'm just going to make sure that there are no mica pigments right here on my table, tiny pigments, and just clean off my mat. And I can then just check if this has dried. Needs a little bit of a dry time, so I'm just quickly going to heat set that. Sorry for the heat tool sound that you will hear. And I'll just set this aside, bring back my base and see what I want to add. So I'm going to bring back the first stencil I had used, but this time with yellow. So that will add more vibrancy to my background, just to match what I have going on in the foreground. But I want the background to be a little subtle, and that's why it's important to layer it up. You can always go back and add more, and instead of just starting with too much and then struggling with that. So the yellow just adds a great pop. I will move that, bring back the floral stencil, just roughly replace it like I had previously, and I'll just go back and add a little more orange, making it vibrant. So this time now I'm going with a little more ink, heavy-handed basically, to add pops of bright orange. And through this I am going to spritz water to just get that ink activated and just leave it to dry. So our background layers are done, and you can see how fast that was. It's not something I'm spending too much time on, just quick layers and quick coloring. Of course, you just stamp the images with embossing ink and heat set them with embossing powder. But I just wanted to show you this because this is a fun and easy way of working and having fun while you create with this. I'm going to bring my next stencil, lay it out, and this time I am going in with black ink. So black adds a great detail, a great element of pop, a contrast to our creations. So I'm going to just pick black ink, and not everywhere, but just randomly add black ink through the stencil at a few places. Just like that. And I will go back in with this floral stencil that has the script, and just at the script portion, again with black ink, I'm going to add a few details. Just that script area, that's about it. That's it. So we have our background layers looking good. I can then set everything aside and die cut my focal elements and then put this together, and we are done. So I am going to just quickly clean. So I'm just using baby wipe before I can actually clean these with water, just to make sure that they are not too stained. That's set aside, and I will quickly show you how I'm using the dies as well. So I have the dies laid out, and I'm not using the frame but just the die to cut out the pattern and place it, just making sure it's covering that entire background, the outline basically that I have colored in, and then I can run it through the die cut machine. So some are doubles. I have stamped some flowers twice just for interest. So I can then do the same thing and die cut those. But I will be stepping aside from my work desk to quickly die cut these elements because my die cut machine is on the other side. And just like this, I will die cut all of these elements and be back in like 2 minutes. So I'm back with the die cut elements, and I'm just quickly going to place my dies on this side, place the flowers, and just push out some of these flowers that are stuck in the die so that I can quickly layer them up and show you how easy it is to add these layers on top of our background layers with the stencils, and how fun they are to play with. Just all of these florals, the foliage elements, the coordinated stencils. I think it's just such a fun collection, and it's a collection that you can reach out for time and again. You know, you can just use this and pair it with other upcoming products, but these are like staples, you know, basic stencils for backgrounds, for layering, and basic elements that you can constantly reach out for. That's something I really love about this collection. Another latest collection from Sixxiz is with Willow Wolf, and I absolutely love that collection too. Some great florals for coloring, especially if you are somebody who enjoys coloring mediums, be it watercolors, be it markers. I have shared reels over on my Instagram using the collection and just sharing a few different ideas. So that's my page right there, and I can then quickly start layering. Now this black die cut is a beautiful accent for just bringing all the focal elements to the foreground in this busy background. So I tore off a little bit and I like to use it that way. And I personally like to start with the bigger flower. Just use my fingers to curl it up. You can always use the shaping tool. You know, if you're big into that, I just do this and just bring a little difference. So I want to layer this on top right here. So I'm going to place it there. Let's see, just like that. So that's my first flower. And then I will add this with a pop of yellow right there. I can place that right here. So I'm just dry fitting everything first. Just make sure I like where everything goes, and then I can tuck in things. So I'm just going to use my Sixxiz quick drying liquid glue to glue my flower layers together. And I just like to press it with the tweezers. I will quickly just glue this black strip as well because I have nice layers on my background, and I can just glue this down. And I've not added glue all the way. I like the organic edges of this die, and I think it just makes for a really great pop right there. So this is set, and I'm going to apply glue at the back right in the center and just adhere this flower, and then same thing, basically just gluing layers, different assorted flowers, different sizes, just to build and create a fuller bloom, and glue that to the page. Now in this case I am going to just first glue this one right there, and then just use this, glue it right in the center. Oops. Okay. push it back there, and that's about it. And now I can start tucking in the leaves, the foliage, and finally add the butterfly. Now this one is pretty big, so I'm just going to break it down, and it looks really organic and still nice, and I can get two out of that one single die. So I'm going to do that, add it right there behind my flower. And this element, this foliage element, just elongates the design completely, just creates that sense of movement along our flower. So I'm going to do the same thing with the other die as well, and snip it off and use that right here at the bottom. So it creates the sense of movement from the top of the page all the way at the bottom, just like that. Same thing, I'm just going to quickly tuck it underneath, and then I can tuck in my leaves. So I'm going to add one right there. And one right here in between these two flowers to add a little color so they don't just look too lost. And then my butterflies. So again, the butterflies will help us create a sense of movement throughout the page. So I'm going to add one right here at the top. And one right here at the bottom, just slightly on the flower. So you see that black really helps us break from our background and integrate the focal elements. Now, all I need is a sticker, a sentiment, something to frame this, and I'm not going to add that right now, but I'm going to go ahead and complete this with splatter. And for the splatter, I am going to use a little bit of shimmer. So let me just pull that out. I have Lindy's Pixie Dust here, which is just shimmer mica. And on my mat right here on the side, I'm going to sprinkle a little and mist it with water, and it gives me this nice gold pearlescent mix. And when that dries, it just dries as the gold shimmer. So I'm going to splatter with that to add that shimmer and bling. And that completes the page. Pretty much just, like I said, a journal sticker, a sentiment, a phrase, anything. Now, you can also just use this as a card. It's going to be a mixed media layered card. And you can just stick this to a card base. So you could, essentially just create one with whatever card size you make, 4x6 or A2. And it just makes for a really nice card as well. So let's see, I'm going to set everything aside and bring my page in the book and show you this. So I have a lot of yellow here on my journal page on the left side, less yellow, but more magenta, purple, orange on the right side. And just by changing up the colors, you can achieve different looks. I've used the same Lindy set colors on this, but it was just different mixes as compared to what I showed you today. Now you can always add these sequences, enamel dots, pearls, sparkles, whatever you wish to add flower centers to just embellish it further. And it's the touches of the black that add so much contrast with the white which we have on the outline. So, hi Cindy, Thank you so much. I am so glad to see you after a really long time. I haven't been doing too many lives myself. So, yeah, I'm glad you are here. I just about finished. So, I hope that you watched the replay. I was playing with Sixxiz Vicki Boutin collection and created, a page, a loose page, but something that can be used as a card as well. So, for everybody watching the replay, do leave your comments. Let me know if I was able to inspire you all. And I look forward to seeing you at some point in one of my classes and future lives. Thank you so much. And I will see you soon. Bye bye.